I will start my reading practice from the book Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And M. Emotionally, I was wasted, not just because of my sheer physical exhaustion or because I couldn't get the record for myself, but because so many people had come out to help. I had taken over Nander's gym and felt like I had disappointed everyone. Without a word, my mother and I slipped out the back door like we were escaping a crime scene. And as she drove to the hospital, I couldn't stop thinking I am better than this. While Nandor and his team broke down the clocks, untied the banners, swept up chalk, and peeled bloody tape off their pull up bar. My mom and I slumped into chairs in the ER waiting room. I was holding what was left of my glove. It looked like it was lifted from the O.J. Simpson crime scene, like it had been marinated in blood. She eyeballed me and shook her head. Well, she said, I know one thing. After a long pause, I turned to her face. What's that? You are gonna do this again. She read my demon mind. I was already doing my live autopsy and would run through a complete AAR on paper as soon as my bloody hands would allow. I knew there was treasure in this racket and leverage to be gained somewhere. I just had to piece it together like a puzzle, and the fact that she realized that without my saying so fired me up. A lot of us surround ourselves with people who speak to our desire for comfort, who would rather treat the pain of our wounds and prevent further injury than help us callous over them and try again. We need to surround ourselves with people who will tell us what we need to hear, not what we want to hear, but at the same time not make us feel we are up against the impossible. My mother was my biggest fan. Wherever I failed in life, she was always asking me when and where I would go after it again. She never said, well, maybe it is not meant to be. Most wars are won or lost in our own heads, and when we are in a foxhole, we usually are not alone. And we need to be confident in the quality of the heart, mind, and dialogue of the person hunkered down with us. Because at some point, we will need some empowering words to keep us focused and deadly. In that hospital, in my own personal foxhole, I was swimming in doubt. I fell 800 pull ups short and I knew what 800 pull ups felt like. That's a long fucking day, but there was nobody else I would rather have been in that foxhole with. Don't worry, she said, I will start calling those witnesses up as soon as we get home. Roger that, I said. Tell them I will be back on that bar in 2 months. In life, there is no gift as overlooked or inevitable as failure. I have had quite a few and have learned to release them because if you do the forensics, you will find clues about where to make adjustments and how to eventually accomplish your task. I am not talking about a mental list either. After the second attempt, I wrote everything out longhand but didn't start with the obvious issue. My grip. Initially, I brainstormed everything that went well because in every failure, a lot of good things will have happened and we must acknowledge them. The best takeaway from the Nashville attempt was Nando's place. His dungeon of a gym was the perfect environment for me. Yeah, I am on social media and in the spotlight from time to time, but I am not a Hollywood person. I get my strength from a very dark place, and Nando's gym was not a phony as happy factory. It was dark, sweaty, painful, and real. I called him the very next day and asked if I could come back to train and make another run at the record. I had taken a lot of his time and energy and left behind a mess, so I had no idea how he would respond. Yeah, motherfucker, he said, let's go. It meant a lot to have his support again. Another positive was how I handled my second meltdown. I was off the mat and on the comeback trail before I even saw the ER doc. That's where you want to be. You can't let a simple failure derail your mission or let it warm so far up your ass it takes over your brain and sabotages your relationships with people who are close to you. Everyone fails sometimes, and life is not supposed to be fair, much less bend to your every whim. Luck is a capricious bitch. It won't always go your way, so you can't get trapped in this idea that just because you have imagined a possibility for yourself that you somehow deserve it. Your entitled mind is dead weight. Cut it loose. Don't focus on what you think you deserve. Take aim on what you are willing to earn. I never blamed anyone for my failures and I didn't hang my head in Nashville. I stayed humble and sidestepped my entitled mind because I knew damn well I had not earned my record. The scoreboard does not lie and I didn't delude myself otherwise. Believe it or not, most people prefer delusion. They blame others or bad luck or chaotic circumstances. I didn't, which was positive. I listed most of the equipment we used on the positive side of the AAR as well. The tape and chalk worked, and even though the bar tore me the fuck up, it also got me 700 additional pull ups. So I was headed in the right direction. Another positive was the support of Nando's CrossFit community. It felt great to be surrounded by such intense, respectful people, but this time I had need to cut the number of volunteers in half. I wanted as little buzz in that room as possible. After listening out all the pulses, it was time to kick the tires on my mindset. And if you are doing your post face plant due diligence, you should do that too. That means checking yourself on how and what you were thinking during the preparation and execution phases of your failure. My commitment to preparation and determination in the fight are always there. They did not waver, but my belief was shakier than I cared to admit. And as I prepared for my third go round, it was imperative to move beyond doubt. That was not easy because after my second failure in as many attempts, the doubters were everywhere online. The record holder, Stephen Highland, was light and spiderly strong with thick muscular palms. He was the perfect build for the pull up record, and everyone was telling me I was just too big. My form was too brutal, and that I should stop trying to go for it before I hurt myself even worse. They pointed to the scoreboard that doesn't lie. I was still over 800 pull ups away from the record. That's more than I gained between my first and second attempts.
Bob pin reset at 1900 hours.
From the beginning, some of them had predicted my hands would give out, and when that truth revealed itself in Nashville, it presented a big mental hurdle. Part of me wondered if those motherfuckers were right, if I was trying to achieve the impossible. Then I thought of an English middle distance runner from back in the day named Roger Bannister. When Bannister was trying to break the 4-minute mile in the 1950s, experts told him it couldn't be done. But that didn't stop him. He failed again and again, but he persevered. And when he ran his historic mile in 3:59.4 on May 6, 1954, he didn't just break a record, he broke open the floodgates simply by proving it possible. 6 weeks later, his record was eclipsed, and by now over 1000 runners have done what was once thought to be beyond human capability. We are all guilty of allowing so called experts or just people who have more experience in a given field than we do to cap our potential. One of the reasons we love sports is because we also love watching those glass ceilings get shattered. If I was going to be the next athlete to smash popular perception, I would need to stop listening to doubt, whether it streamed in from the outside or bubbled up from within. And the best way to do that was to decide that the pull up record was already mine. I didn't know when it would officially become mine. It might be 2 months or 20 years. But once I decided it belonged to me and decoupled it from the calendar, I was filled with confidence and relieved of any and all pressure because my task morphed from trying to achieve the impossible into working toward an inevitability. But to get there, I would have to find the tactical advantage I had been missing. A tactical review is the final and most vital piece of any live autopsy or AAR. And while I had improved tactically from the first attempt, working on a more stable bar and minimizing wasted energy, I still fell 800 reps short, so we needed to delve deeper into the numbers. 6 pull ups per minute on the minute had failed me twice. Yes, it placed me on a fast track to 4020, but I never got there. This time I decided to start slower to go further. I also knew from experience that I would hit some sort of wall after 10 hours and that my response could not be a longer break. The 10-hour mark smacked me in my face twice, and both times I stopped for 5 minutes or longer, which led to ultimate failure pretty quickly. I needed to stay true to my strategy and limit any long breaks to 4 minutes max. Now, about that pull up bar. Yeah, it would probably tear me up again, so I needed to find a workaround. According to the rules, I wouldn't be allowed to switch up the distance between my hands mid attempt. The width would have to remain the same from the first pull up. The only thing I could change would be how I was going to protect my hands. In the run up to my third attempt, I experimented with all different types of gloves. I also got clearance to use custom foam pads to protect my palms. I remembered seeing a couple SEAL buddies use slices of foam mattress to protect their hands when they were lifting heavy weights and called on a mattress company to custom design foam fitting pads for my hands. Guinness approved the equipment, and at 10 a.m. on January 19, 2013, 2 months after failing for the second time, I was back on the bar at CrossFit Brentwood Hills. I started slow and easy with 5 pull ups on the minute. I did not strap my foam pads with tape, I just held them in place around the bar and they seemed to work well. Within an hour, the foam had formed around my hands, insulating them from molten iron hell. Or so I fucking hoped. At around the 2 hours 600 rep mark, I asked Nandor to play Going the Distance on a loop. I felt something click inside and went full cyborg. I found a rhythm on the bar, and between sets I sat on a weight bench and started at the chalk dusted floor. My point of view narrowed into tunnel vision as I prepared my mind for the hell that was to come. When the first blister opened on my palm, I knew shit was about to get real. But this time, thanks to my failure and forensics, I was ready. That doesn't mean I was having any fun. I was not. I was over it. I didn't want to do pull-ups anymore. But achieving goals or overcoming obstacles doesn't have to be fun. Seeds burst from the inside out in a self-destructive ritual of a new life. Does that sound like fucking fun? Like it feels good? I was not in that gym to get happy or do what I wanted to be doing. I was there to turn myself inside out if that's what it took to blast through any and all mental, emotional, and physical barriers. After 12 hours, I finally hit 3000 pull ups, a major checkpoint for me, and felt like I had run headfirst into a wall. I was exasperated in agony, and my hands were starting to come apart again. I was still a long way from the record, and I felt all the eyeballs in the room upon me. With them came the crushing weight of failure and humiliation. Suddenly, I was back in the cage during my third hell week, taping my shins and ankles before mustering up with a new birds class who had heard it was my last chance. It takes great strength to be vulnerable enough to put your ass on the line in public and work toward a dream that feels like it's slipping away. We all have eyeballs on us. Our family and friends are watching, and even if you are surrounded by positive people, they will have ideas about who you are, what you are good at, and how you should focus your energy. That shit is just human nature, and if you try to break out of their box, you will get some unsolicited advice that has a way of smoothing your aspirations if you let it. Often, our people don't mean any harm. Nobody who cares about us actually wants us to get hurt. They want us to be safe, comfortable, and happy, and not to have to stare at the floor in a dungeon shifting through shards of our broken dreams. Too bad. There is a lot of potential in those moments of pain, and if you figure out how to piece that picture back together, you will find a hell of a lot of power there too. Thank you. That's it for the day.